Welcome to this presentation on the SEND Transport Commissioning Programme. This is a copy of a presentation that was given to over 100 parents and carers across 4 engagement events towards the end of February 2017. My name is Leigh Middleton and I'm Senior Commissioning Manager for Children's Schools and Families, and in October 2016 I was asked to lead a project across the Council to review our SEND transport system and service. Today's presentation, or this presentation, is an exact copy of the presentation given to the parents at those events, and we hope that you find this useful. We were aware that not everybody can attend the event, so this presentation is posted so that anybody who couldn't attend can see exactly what we presented to parents and carers. I should say, because this was designed for a live audience, some of the slides may not quite work so well in a video, but we'll do our best. The objectives of the events that we ran were threefold. So we wanted to explain the purpose of the SEND Transport Commissioning Programme, and I shall do that for you in a moment. Gather your views on the current transport system and how it works today, and then to gather ideas for making the SEND transport system more efficient for the future. And I think that's the key, that we're looking to develop a more lean and efficient system going forward. We've been doing this work sort of in partnership with Family Voice, Family Voice being Surrey's parent-carer family forum, and Family Voice represent the views and opinions and concerns and ideas of parents and carers across Surrey within the SEND system. I always describe Family Voice as sort of my conscience, who are sort of constantly saying to us very wisely, you know, are we doing enough? Are we asking the right questions? Are we supporting enough people to get involved? And very, very helpfully. So if you're aware of Family Voice, brilliant. If you're not, then do look them up and see what they're up to. They do lots of events and things, so it's well worth being aware of. The SEND Transport Programme is overseen now by the SEND 2020 Partnership Board. The image on screen is the current development plan for the SEND 2020 programme. This document is actually about to be refreshed following the Ofsted assessment last year, and will be upgraded. But the new version of this document will have a lot more information around transport. Transport doesn't particularly appear in this document, whereas in the new one it will appear a lot more. We're just very aware that transport and the offer around transport interacts with every aspect of SEND in many ways. So whether that be through education, which is kind of core purpose, but all the way through to developing independent skills for children and young people. So do look out for the new version of this later in the year, because it will include a lot of information around transport. So the purpose of the events that we held, and the purpose of the programme, if you wish, was these 5 core goals. So very keen around developing independence. So how do we use transport to support children and young people to be as independent as they can be? Now, we're really aware that the diversity of need within the SEND children and young people across the county is very diverse, and therefore for some children and young people, actually being very independent is a real goal and something we should be supportive and aiming for. Others, that may not be ever possible, and we're aware of that. So going forward, we're looking at a sort of suite of options that support as many young people as possible to be independent to the right level that they're able to be. The second goal is around improving our users' experience. So I define users as our children and young people, obviously because they use the transport, but actually also our parents and carers who engage with the council, engage with the drivers and the support, right the way through to our schools, who are the other end of the system, and staff there, our caseworkers and our partners and our providers. I mean, everybody has an experience of the system. So we're looking to improve everybody's kind of experience of that system over time. The third point there is around making the system more efficient. You could subsidise that word efficient for costing less, and there's no hiding, and we're not hiding this. There is a goal around saving some of the money that we spend on transport. I've got some more details coming up on that. But actually, it's about making the whole thing work better. We've had lots of brilliant ideas coming out from the events with parents and carers that just show us that actually we doing certain things slightly differently, we can save money and improve things, and ultimately that's the goal, and we work as hard as we can to get towards that point. The fourth point around there is developing our providers, and there's over nearly 100 organisations and companies that deliver transport for us currently, and we are looking quite closely at how we can support them to adapt and change and improve, maybe bringing in different types of providers if that's appropriate, but just generally looking at how we develop our providers through training and support. And again, I've got some more bits coming up later on that. The fifth one here is around designed in collaboration with others. I mean, this is the key. We can't do any of this on our own, and it's about working with everybody to get the best system we can collectively create. And everybody has a role in this. I mean, this presentation is aimed at parents and carers, and actually, again, at the events that we have run, we've had some tremendous feedback from parents with some great ideas, and even some ideas that I thought that we might be a bit tricky. Parents have been really positive about and say, no, please do this. This will be really positive. So we'll go back and look at those ideas a bit further. But designed in collaboration, working with parents closer, and we've got some ideas about how we might do that. So a question I've asked at all these events, and I'll give you a moment in a second to think about this, but how much do you think Surrey spends on SEND transport? Now this would be for around 3,000 children for an academic year. There's a total figure that I shall show you on the next slide, but just take a moment to get a number in your head around what you think we spend on SEN transport. I'll warn you now, it's in the millions. So, here we go. The County Council spends £27 million or thereabouts on providing support and assistance to families and children to get them to their place of education, and £27 million is a big figure. If you were able to attend any of the events that we have run, normally at this point there is an audible intake of breath from the audience where that figure lands, and most people's guesses are in sort of 5, 10, maybe 15 million at the maximum. I mean, that equates to £134,000 a day. So if you're watching this video on a school day, that today we will have spent, around County Council would have spent £134,000 on average getting children to and from their place of education, which equates to around £9,600 per person per year. Now, some children are, 2,000 or 3,000, and others runs into the tens of thousands. It depends on where they're going, but and their need. But it's still a lot of money. In contrast, our 22 special schools have a sort of total budget around 58 million. So the amount of spend. We're spending over half our budget on our schools on getting children to and from those schools, and that is one of the reasons that we're looking at this project. Now, I mentioned that the part of this project has a savings objective, and that goal for us at the moment is to find £4.2 million by 2021, and then to keep that cost static through to 2025. Well, the good news is we don't have to find all that money in one go, and it's not, it's profiled out over the next 3 years. But it is a lot of money. But actually, we have some really interesting ideas coming forward of, again, how we can cut cost and save money at the same time and improve quality, and that is all the merrier of ideas of that nature, because that is exactly what we're trying to achieve. But we may have to adapt what we do going forward. It may be slightly different, and actually our parents and carers at the events that we've run have come up with lots of ideas about how we can do that, and been very supportive and positive about some of that. The point at the bottom of the slide, the council can't do this on our own, and we do need the support of everybody involved, and that includes our parents and carers, that includes our providers, that includes our schools, and our staff. So we are looking for all the ideas and support. We are looking for, how we can improve things, how we can make things work better, and take this work forward. But we're not, we're being very upfront at these events around this 4.2 million saving objective. So one of the reasons we believe that the transport system is kind of more expensive in Surrey, and just to put that in context, we're in the top 10 local authorities in the country for spend. We spend a lot of money on this compared to many other local authorities. One of those key reasons is around our education system, I suggest. So Surrey has 22 special schools, and they tend to have specialist topics. So they are specialists in autism or what have you, and so children will travel from wherever they live to get to the school that can meet their specialism. Now, on one hand, this is excellent because there are excellent schools in their area, and that is fantastic. The downside, if you look at these top pairs of maps on the top level, on the right hand side here, as you look at the screen, we've got a school in Caterham. This is Clifton Hill, and on the left in the postcode box is all the blodges. They're all postcode areas where children live and where they travel from to get to Clifton Hill on a sort of daily basis. So you've got children coming from the sort of far reaches of Camberley, right up into sort of the top of Spelthorne, and these children are going up the M3, down the M25 every day to get to school. Which is not only a long way, but also a tricky journey a lot of the time. And simply transport is expensive because the journey time is so much longer. So children, they've got multiple vehicles doing a similar route, and because it's so far, just with the mileage, it just costs more. The bottom pair of maps are the other way around. So on the left-hand side, I took a 3-mile radius of the centre of Guildford. So these are all the postcodes that kind of cover a 3-mile radius of the centre of Guildford. And the red and orange dots on the right-hand side map here are all the locations that we transport children to their place of education. So quite a few of those are quite close to Guildford, but there are others going all the way down to Eastbourne, Southampton, and actually, if I could stretch this map out, there's actually a dot in Exeter. We have a young person that goes down there. So again, the distances involved just mean the cost is much higher. So one way to make substantial saving in transport is closer to home education and educating children closer to where they live, which is another strand of the SEND 2020 programme and is an area of work that I know is being looked into. So just continuing the context, in December the County Council supported 2,974 children to transport to school, which was around 254 locations from around 2,400 postcodes, which is where children live or reside. There were 184 wheelchair users. 805 children and young people have an escort. I should say there's not needing an escort, but they're on a vehicle where an escort is provided for one or more children or young people. 86 children and young people travel solo because this is defined by their need. So they need, their need is such that we need to transport them in solo transport. And 1,037 contracts are in place with providers to deliver all this across those 98 operators I was talking about earlier. So I hope this just gives a picture of just how complicated the system is. There's lots of 1,000 vehicles zooming all over the county every day, transporting lots of children to lots of locations, and it just makes it so complicated, and that adds to the cost and adds to the challenge, and it adds to the challenge around the duration that a child is transported. It adds to the challenge around who we can use to actually do the work, and there are other challenges involved. So again, the purpose of this programme is to look at how we can improve all of that going forward. So looking forward, we've started to think around what we might do and what could be done. I want to stress really loud and clearly here that there is no decisions taken whatsoever at this point. These are all sort of thoughts and suggestions and ideas. Some of these are a little more developed. As I go through the presentation, that will become clear. And we're putting things into sort of a must-do, why wouldn't you do box. We could do that straight away. It would make lots of sense. Let's just get on with it. There's a sort of box of ideas that might be too complicated, too difficult, or unpalatable, and we'll put some ideas in that box that are coming up. And there are some other boxes that we might want to develop or pilot or test, and I'll come on to that later on. But we're working through these 4 themes for transport, so improving that user experience is absolutely key. Making the system efficient, developing our providers, and then again, absolutely key to us is developing independence, and that's clearly a clear message coming from parents and carers as well around developing that independence. So I'm going to give you, in a minute, I'm going to take you through each of those 4 categories and give you a flavour of some of the key ideas that we're thinking through. We would welcome your thoughts and comments on these ideas, as well as other ideas that we haven't covered, and we just, more feedback the merrier. I can't stress that enough. So the first one about improving the user's experience. One of the things that we're looking at is around developing a personal transport plan or a travel plan for each individual child or young person. Now, this doesn't have to be this is a document essentially, but it would, we're looking at sort of no more than a side of A4, maybe 2 at the maximum. And where our current thinking is around parents themselves being responsible for sort of completing this in partnership with schools. And the simple reason for parents doing this is that you know your children better than anybody else, so you're best placed to support us to help get that transport right. But this would be a document that sort of outlines their need. It's information we can provide to the provider that delivers transport if we need to provide a vehicle. And it's subtle things that what enables your child to travel successfully. And one of the stories I talk at the events is we've got a provider that transports a young gentleman, and 3 weeks in from this driver transporting this young chap to and from school every day, the child's getting very anxious, quite upset, and kind of not enjoying his experience. And so I think on the third week, the provider spoke to the parents and said, "Is there anything I can do to sort of support your child's travel, calmer, and less distressed?" And the parents said, "Well, one thing that we use from time to time is if you put you bear with me on this one, but this is true. If you put Barbie Girl by Aqua on the radio and see what it does." And the driver went home, downloaded on his iPod the song. On the Monday morning, puts it on loop in the car, and at the back of the vehicle, the young person sat dead silent, dead still, just bopping his head back from side to side all the way to school. So this driver deserves a medal in my view, because for the last 3 years, or however long it is, 40 minutes in the morning, 40 minutes in the afternoon, he's been driving this child to and from school with that song playing on loop, and that's transformed the way that child arrives at school, how they arrive home at the end of the day, and rather than the school needing to take time to calm them down and support them, they're actually able to, they're arriving happy and engaged, and that's everybody's goal. But without capturing that level of information, that's possibly an extreme case, but there's lots of things that we know can make a real difference, and we're just really keen to improve the sort of personal element of that. So a personal travel plan. The other area around personal travel plans, working with schools. Schools are very keen to develop that independence element. And again, schools saying, well, we've got children who we believe could probably travel independently. But actually, if we had a plan and it's designed with parents as part of maybe their EHCP review or not, and we can review it as the year goes on, or the years go by, then actually we can aim for a point where they are independent, or we can aim for a point in the future where things may be different. But actually, it's a process where we can join the transport up. One thing I've heard from some head teachers was around, well, actually, our current transport system doesn't help independence, because it actually, we might do a class group walk to the bus stop and how to get a bus and or what have you, and then they go back to the classroom and they're picked up by a taxi and driven home, and it just sort of the two don't really match. So a personal travel plan to develop that personalised transport opportunities. The next one around is a parental guide to transport. So I'm just very aware you've got to be quite a good researcher to navigate all the information and the policy and the processes. So this is quite simple. Let's create a booklet where we put all the information in plain English, very easy to understand. Explain all the transition points, explain the processes very clearly in a book. And we've had some really great idea, which was we should write this for maybe a 16-year-old. We should write this for a young or 15-year-old, or write it for a young person, because if young people can understand it, then parents will, staff will, providers will, and I think that's a great challenge that we'll take forward. The next one down is probably one of the things we've done quite a bit of thinking around. And this is around developing an online transport portal. So this will be a website. It might be scalable to a smartphone. But actually, it's a place where you can log on as the parent carer, and you will find your child's transport contract, the details of the provider, maybe the details of the driver or drivers, there may be a biography and their photograph, and you can see the details of transport. We've heard lots of feedback around communication being a challenge, and actually we have the system that can do this, so it's very easy to just put the information up front. Sort of an addition to this will be creating a mechanism for parents to communicate directly with our transport colleagues. So actually a box that you can fill in, if you've got a question or a concern or a comment, you can fill it in and it can hit send, and it'll go straight off into our IT system for transport, and then our transport colleagues can process that and get back to you. So occasionally things can take quite a long time, but if it's all tracked and processed, then at least we know about it, and things don't go missing. I don't think that happens a lot, but it's certainly a way of putting you in more control. We've got some other ideas for this transport portal, but I'll come on to those in a little bit. The next point down was around CCTV. So if you go on any public bus, or go to a library or shopping centre or anything like this, cameras are everywhere these days. And we're very aware that occasionally we get complaints around transport and people's experience of transport, and drivers, and it's a real mix in some places. I mean, on the most part, the feedback we've had is drivers and escorts superb, but it's not always the case. Also, the other areas around child's experience and whether they're having a good experience in travelling. And one of the options is to install in-car cameras to the vehicles that we use. So this would have maybe a camera that points out the front of the vehicle, so we can monitor road conditions and the speed and those sort of elements, and then a camera pointing into the vehicle, so actually it captures what's going on in the car or the bus. And this would enable us very quickly to address any concerns that may arise, and actually I think this will provide a level of protection for drivers. And it's always the classic, so and so did something to someone else, and by the time we get around to investigating it, it's always quite hard to explore and investigate properly. Whereas actually we could very quickly pull off the footage and look at that, and it'll give you an answer almost immediately. So it's an area that we're going to explore, and we might pilot this. But any thoughts around that? And this has gone very well so far with parents. Parents have been very positive around this. There would need to be some tight policies and processes, and we're very aware of that. And data security would be important, but we think it has there's an option there. And the last point here is around increasing training for our providers. So we've got schools who offer training for our taxi companies and escorts. They've gone so far as to say actually we would offer bespoke training for a driver and escort on a specific child for an hour every term if necessary, if that enabled that child to travel more successfully. So we're just very keen to improve that training offer. So our next category is around making the system efficient. And one of our opportunities here is around the use of GPS technology. Transport hasn't really changed much in sort of 30 years, so one of our opportunities is to use an app that works on an Android phone, which our drivers would have, and this system allows us to track our children in and out of their transport, so they can tag them in when they get in the vehicle and they tag them out when they get to school or college. It will enable us in real time to see where the vehicles are, so if they're late or whatever, we can see that information. One of the benefits in terms of the efficiency, in terms of cost savings, that we are aware that there is travel that takes place, it doesn't take place maybe because a child is ill or got a medical appointment or is in hospital. Everyone's situation's different, but if we don't know about that, we may still get invoiced for that journey. And while most of our providers are very honest, occasionally these things slip through. But what we can actually do is use the GPS data to show us, that journey didn't take place, therefore we're not paying for it. One potential is to actually put this GPS live tracking into the parental web portal. So actually, you as mum, dad, parents, carer can log on, have a look, and can explore. If you're expecting your child home at 4 o'clock and it's 10 past and you're not sure where they are, you can log on and you can see, I think it's every 30 seconds where the vehicle currently is. And I think this is just around building parental confidence and giving you that kind of information that's just helpful. So that's one of the areas around GPS technology. Not just tracking vehicles, telling parents where people are, but also it'll help us in terms of cost and savings. We will be developing some new policies. We're going to have a go at designing a mainstream and SEN policy in one document. Currently we have 2 for pre-16 and 2 for post-16. Our kind of overall goal is possibly to try and have one document that covers the whole lot. And our current policies are many pages long. I mean, they run to 40 plus pages, and I kind of set a goal of trying to write a new policy that maybe 10-15 pages is written in very clear plain English, and it's just quite a different approach to policy. Now time will tell whether we can do that, but it's an area that we're keen to explore. The third point here is around our systems and processes. I won't go into this in any detail, but this is simply how we organise things behind the scenes, how we work with our schools, and how it's kind of organised, and just making that more efficient. The final point here is interesting, and it kind of links to our policy point. So We're aware that we need a matrix of options to cover all the needs of children and young people, so there is no one size fits all, and a policy that needs to be flexible to allow for that. But a policy will cover, maybe 90% of all children's needs, and it'll work quite successfully. But we're aware that there's a group of children and young people that just doesn't work for. And rather than have a situation where we're going, well, I'm really sorry, but the policy doesn't really allow us to do anything, let's have a mechanism that actually enables us to make a sort of bespoke decision for that child or group of children if there's a similar number of them with the same needs. And actually a panel where you as parent carers can come along to, with caseworkers, school maybe, and some of our transport experts, and we'll have a conversation about your child and their need and what we might want to do about that, and then agree a sort of solution. One of the things around this would be around maybe using sort of case law. So if we make a decision for a child and then we have a very similar situation a year later, well, we'll use the example that we've already decided on to make sure we make consistent decisions. But if their story is totally different, then it would be a sort of bespoke solution. Quite a complicated thing to do, but we're keen to have a look and see whether there's some merit in developing that. The next area is around developing our providers. And actually, a lot of parents aren't aware of the parental travel allowance. This is a scheme where the county council provides an allowance to parents to transport their own children to school, and it's currently based on a mileage rate. We are looking at how we can develop this for the future and to grow this. And one thing that's very clear is not many parents know about this scheme, and those that do, their understanding is that you have to do the sort of morning and afternoon run to school or college, but actually we could probably build in flexibility. We had a parent who said, well, I could do the morning because to drop my child on my way to work, but I can't pick them up at 3 o'clock because I have to finish work at 5. And it may be that the county council brings them home, but you take them. That parent takes them to school, and there's lots of ideas. I mean, I've heard that story from many parents. So there's lots of ideas around that, and how we can improve the value of that scheme to everybody. So we're going to be looking at that quite closely. New ways of buying transport. This is sort of systems of procurement things, how we post and advertise the work that we've got, and how we negotiate to get the best price, and we're exploring ways around that. Again, back to our parental portal, actually building into that portal a system to allow parents and carers to cancel unrequired days transport. So our provider who provides the software says it's very easy to actually give a system where you can go on, and if you know next Tuesday they've got a dentist appointment and you're going to collect them from school, well, you can cancel the afternoon school collection. If we know they're going into hospital for whatever reason, well, then you can log on and you can tell us that, and the system will automatically tell the provider not to collect your child on those days. And this can work quite close to the start of the school day. So if they're not very well the evening before, you can go on and tell us, and then the taxi won't turn up the next day. And this would save us a lot of money. We're quite good at capturing when transport isn't needed, but not everything. And this will just be a very efficient way of giving you that control of telling us what isn't, when it isn't, and what isn't needed. And the final point here is around the use of community transport providers. So these are traditional dial-a-ride buses, brilliant providers who tend to do a lot of sort of OAP support, taking elderly residents to day centres or shopping or appointments. We use some community transport providers now, and they do a great job, but we're very keen to grow this sector. These are sort of not-for-profit organisations, so they're not any money they make is going back into what they do. They're very familiar with working with vulnerable residents because that is their business. So they tend to be very good at supporting children and young people with disabilities, and we're just very keen to see this sector do more of our work going forward. So the last area was around that developing independence. So the first point here is around developing independent travel training. This is an option that we've been working on for quite some time. If all the things that you've seen in this presentation, this is probably the area that's most advanced. We've been doing some talks with a provider, and we've been developing this. We used to have a independent travel training offer up to about 2 or 3 years ago, and then that was sort of stopped. But we're looking at bringing in a provider. We'll provide from September for a number of children and young people independent one-to-one training for 6 to 12 weeks to assist them to learn to travel to school completely independently or semi-independently. There'll be more information on this to come. This is an area that schools have been very positive about, very keen to see us develop, and we will be doing that in the not too distant future. But again, it involves working with parents. And my caveat across many of these ideas is where appropriate. Independent travel training is not going to be for every child, but where it has merit, then it may be an option. The personal travel plan, I think, is all about developing that independence. Yes, it's about making that transport smoother and simpler and easier for children and young people, but it's also about working with schools, with parents to promote that independence, to prepare children and young people for independence. And then when they're ready for it, if they're ready for it and that's appropriate, well, then we have our independent travel training offer that can assist. The next point down is similar to the independent travel training. Almost the same provider will provide training and support for schools and colleges around independent travel, and actually a package of resource that they can use. So the work can go on maybe many years before they actually go on our program, on the training program. But the work can go on in schools to sort of promote and support that. And then lastly, the policies that we're going to try and produce. Again, all about supporting independence and will be framed in that sense. What we want to do is develop that independence and support that and make the tools and mechanisms possible. So this slide just gives a quick overview of the timescales involved. So we're looking at developing our options appraisals in sort of February and March. We're sort of halfway through that. So we've been doing our engagement events with parents to gather thoughts and ideas, reviewing feedback of those and all the events that we've done. And we'll choose, as I spoke earlier about our three pots of maybe too hard to do, must do, and let's look at. And I think in the let's look at pot will be things that we might want to pilot or test, and we'll run some pilots. We're thinking that will conclude around July, but I think if things need retesting or we need to do a bit more, then we've got time to do that, so we may go on a bit further. We're kind of working to this sort of virtual date around September time, where we'll have the new model of transport ready to go, and we'll have consulted parents and carers and everybody else in between around that. What we're also saying, though, is you're not going to see a huge new service go live on the 1st of September because the nature of the needs of children and young people, it will take a number of years maybe to implement some of these things, and it won't be a quick, change. That would be unhelpful. But we will be developing that as we go. This slide just gives you a overview of some of the key milestones. So we're developing our two new policies here in the red and the green. The purple one is around getting our cabinet approval for our independent travel because that is fairly advanced, and we're hoping to get that done by the end of April. We're looking at the EHCP process, the new review process, and actually embedding transport a little more sophisticated into that. Currently, I think it's a tick box that says, do you want transport? Yes, no. Is an escort? Yes, no. But that doesn't help promote independence. It doesn't help promote other sources and support. So we're keen that we explore that further. And the sort of personal travel plan and parental portal, we've like to see that ready by September the 1st. The full effects of that may take a while to implement beyond that, but it would be good to get the products ready. So this is a point where we offer the audience lots of opportunities to ask questions, and we had some fantastic suggestions and questions. Your opportunity below this, near this video, hopefully you'll find a link to a survey that you can fill in a questionnaire and send us your suggestions and your ideas. This next slide here was around the workshop that we ran, and we asked parents and carers for their ideas and thoughts for the future on these four questions. So improving the user's experience of SEND transport, making the system more efficient for service users, what's working well now, and how to increase independence. And so the survey that you've looked, hopefully is below this or near this video, you will be able to find those four questions and you'll be able to put your responses. If you found this video through a Twitter link or something, if you go to www.sendt.online, that is the website that you can find this video and a link to the survey itself. I've jumped around, sorry, got that wrong. We've got a number of planned engagement activities. So we've run, these are the top here are the 4 events that we've run so far, and we will be running more of these. We ran most of these in the evening because we were very aware that the majority of SEN consultation or engagement events are almost exclusively during the school day. And I've heard lots of feedback from parents going, well, I work, I can't come to them. So we thought, right, we'll break the mould, and this time around we'll do them in the evening. That's gone down well, but it also has highlighted that they're actually, caring responsibilities and what have you. That's not always ideal. So for future rounds of engagement, we'll definitely do some during the day. We'll probably 2 during the day and 2 during the evening, and we'll spread them around the county and we'll keep moving them. We're also planning some webinars, and again, we've got the online forms that people can fill in to send in their thoughts and comments, and we really welcome that. Do look out for future engagement events. The next round, probably towards the end of April, May time, will be very much focused around these new transport policies, because they will set the tone about how this works and what goes forward, maybe some of the criteria and things like that, and that will be key. So do look out for those events. We will write to every home address like we did last time to inform parents and carers of that. And then again later in June, July, once we've done the piloting, once we've explored all our options, we will consult on sort of our final suggested options and proposals for the future, and then we will, confirm those, adapt them if necessary from the feedback, confirm those, and then we'll take that to Cabinet in September for approval. Thank you for listening, and sorry if I'm listening to me droning on, but I hope this has been a useful presentation and give you an opportunity to hear from us directly around our thinking and what the programme is about, what we're trying to achieve. Very clear around those 4 key drivers, and certainly developing independence and efficiency and improving the experience of that system. They are absolutely core to what we're trying to achieve. I thank you for listening, and I hope you take the time to fill in our survey and questionnaires, and we hope to see you at future events if possible. Many thanks.